When a layoff announcement hits, it feels like an ending, right? But for the leaders on the ground, that's actually just the beginning of a whole new, really tough challenge. Today, we're getting into the playbook for what comes next, how you actually rebuild a team after it's been broken.
All right, let's just get right into it, because this is the real paradox. On one hand, you've got the market reaction. The announcement drops and the stock price jumps. Wall Street loves it. But on the other hand, you have the reality inside the company, where everything just grinds to a halt.
So here's our playbook for today. We're going to walk through 5 key parts. First, we'll unpack that disconnect between the market and reality. Then, we'll diagnose the damage you can't see. And finally, we'll go through a practical 3-phase plan to get your team moving again.
All right, first up, let's really unpack this idea. Why does Wall Street so often cheer for something that feels so destructive on the inside? It's a view that's dangerously incomplete. So, the story they tell the public, it's always the same, right? It's a strategic reset. It's about gaining efficiency. And for everyone on the outside, for all the stakeholders, this sounds fantastic, like a smart, decisive business move. And boom, here's what that looks like in the real world. Block announced major layoffs. They mentioned AI efficiencies, and the market rewarded them almost instantly. Investors just love this signal of cutting costs and streamlining.
But here's the thing, and it's so important. That stock ticker, it tells you absolutely nothing about the human reality. The real story, the one that matters to you as a leader, that starts on Monday morning when the survivors log back in.
And that brings us to this idea of a hidden collapse. Because the slowdown that always follows a layoff, it's not just about morale. It's not just that people are sad or disengaged. It's way, way deeper than that. The very structure of how work gets done has been silently torn apart. Think about it like this. Every company runs on these informal systems. It's the secret wiring. It's knowing who to actually call in finance to get something unstuck, or that quick chat in the hall that solves a problem before it blows up. Layoffs don't just remove people. They sever these critical, invisible connections.
And along with those connections, something else vanishes, your institutional memory. You know, the why behind that failed project from 3 years ago? The context for why you don't do things a certain way? All that critical history just walked out the door, leaving your team trying to navigate without a map. This quote just nails it. It reframes the entire problem. You haven't just lost employees. You've lost your unofficial operating system, all the little shortcuts and unwritten rules that actually made things work. And this is the dangerous state you end up in. Everyone looks busy, meetings are happening, emails are flying, but nothing is actually moving forward. There's friction everywhere, and nobody's really sure who's supposed to make a call anymore.
So how do you fix this? Well, it's not a one-and-done pep talk. It's a really deliberate 5-step process designed to systematically rebuild everything that just got shattered, from the emotional to the operational.
Okay, the very first thing you have to do, before anything else, is deal with the human reality head on. You can't talk about the future until you address the pain and the uncertainty that's happening right now. Now, a lot of leaders try to just power through. You see messages like this one from Citi's CEO. And look, it's direct, it sets expectations. But for the survivors, the people who are dealing with fear and guilt and grief, it can make them feel totally unheard. So instead, here's what you do. Within 48 hours, get your team in a small room and just ask these 2 incredibly powerful questions. And your job isn't to talk, it's to listen. That's it. That act alone starts to clear out all that emotional static and is the very first step to rebuilding trust. All right, so once you've made that space for the emotional reality, it's time for phase 2, deliberately rebuilding the actual operational and psychological systems that got broken. You know, one of the biggest reasons for that paralysis we talked about? Nobody knows who's supposed to make a decision anymore, now that their go-to person is gone. So you use a simple framework like this for every single major project. Define who owns it, who gives input, and who executes. It removes the ambiguity and empowers people to act again. But it's not just about who does what. Layoffs break something much deeper. It's this unwritten deal between an employee and the company. Your remaining people are all subconsciously asking themselves, is it still worth it for me to go the extra mile here? What am I even getting out of this now? Their commitment is absolutely not a given anymore. And if you need proof, look at this. The data is crystal clear. The majority of people who survive a layoff report becoming more hesitant, more risk-averse.
This isn't them being difficult. It's a totally rational reaction to feeling insecure, and it directly kills performance. And that takes us to our final step. You've cleared the air, you've started to rebuild the systems. Now you have to prove with actual evidence that this new team can win again.
So this is what the priority list often looks like after a layoff. The team got smaller, but the to-do list, it's exactly the same size. This is just a recipe for burnout and confusion. It's how you get that paralysis disguised as busyness. So you have to be absolutely ruthless. Get everyone together and ask one question. If we could only do 3 things this quarter to make a real difference, what would they be? You define those 3 things, you make them visible to everyone, and then you fiercely protect the team from everything else.
And finally, remember this: confidence is not built with speeches, it's built with wins. So pick something small, something achievable, fix a bug that's been annoying everyone, finish one small part of a project, and just go get it done. That visible win is powerful proof that progress is possible again.
Because, in the end, it all comes down to this. The market reacted to a piece of news. That's done. The real question is, how is your team going to react to your leadership? That's the real challenge. And that's the problem you're here to solve.